Hi, this is Lauren from Axilent. Welcome to another in a series of screencasts we're going to do, introducing you to the Axilent platform. Today we're going to have a look at content types. Content types define structure and workflow for content in Axilent, and it's kind of the foundation of a lot of the other work that goes on inside the system. To edit content types, you can get to the content types part of the UI by clicking on the content types icon here in the command bar. Now there's two main areas that we're going to want to look at with content types. One is how it defines data structure, and the other is how it defines workflow. In this screencast, we're going to be looking at the structure side of things. Workflow will be in a separate screencast. Okay, so here is the content types section, and to create a new content type, you press the plus bar right here. So initially, in the new content type form here, it'll give the content type a name. Let's say we're making a comment. And then we have a couple of options here. Track affinity means that when content is deployed, infrastructure to allow you to start recording whether people like the content will be deployed along with it. Enable collaborative filtering. Similarly, the infrastructure to start recording collaborative filtering will be deployed with this comment when it's sent out. Collaborative filtering we'll look at in a subsequent screencast. And then the third option here is allow content posting, which is not checked by default. If you are using Axilent in conjunction with another content management system, such as using our WordPress plugin or our Django plugin or something else, then you will want to check this because it will allow the other content management system to post content into Axilent. If you're using Axilent as a standalone CMS, you probably want to leave that unchecked. So structure for content in Axilent is provided by the fields in content types. And so we've just created this new content type. It doesn't have any fields yet. We can add them by clicking the plus button here. And here is the form for a new field. I'm just going to go over this form briefly to explain what we're looking at. So fields have a field type, which is really the data type that we'll be dealing with for the field. And we're going to be looking at depth at different field types in just a minute. It have a name. Field will have a salience value, which is a number from 0 to 100, which you can enter right here. And what salience does is it determines the degree to which matching values in this field for two different items of content mean those content items are relevant to each other. So to give an example of that, if you were to, for example, have a category where you wanted to group everything in a category together, all the content of the same category is relevant to each other, and we were making the category field here, then we would give this a high salience value to indicate how different content items in the same category are relevant to each other. On the other hand, if maybe this was like the main body of text, and there'd be a certain amount of similarity derived from just perhaps similar subject matter inside the body, but we don't want to use that as the basis to associate particular comments with other comments. In that case, we would put a low saliency value, or maybe 0, in for the field, so it's not the foundation for determining whether content is relevant. There's the comparable flag. If this is checked and the system is trying to compare content for the purpose of determining whether it should be tagged in a particular way, we have an auto tagging facility which we'll look at in the workflow screencast. If it's checked, then this field will be used as part of the foundation for determining whether it's similar content. Displayable, which is checked by default, indicates whether this field should be returned to the front end. So when a content item is pulled out of the API, is this field included in the data that comes out for that content item? So if you, for example, wanted to have a field that affected how perhaps Axilent dealt with a piece of content, or you wanted it just for private reference, but you didn't want it to be passed out to the front-end website or app or whatever, then you could uncheck display all, and it would not be returned with the payload of data associated with the content type. Quick edit is quite simple. Quick edit simply indicates whether this field should be included on the quick edit screen for the editor. So back when we were editing content in the inbox, here I'll flip over quickly to it. Back here in the inbox, by default, when you load a piece of content, what you're seeing is the quick edit screen. It's this right here. So full edit is everything. Quick edit, however, is simply those content types where the quick edit flag has been set. And then finally, unique is a bit more of an advanced topic. Basically, if you check unique, it means the values for the different content items in this field must be unique amongst themselves. So you're not going to see duplicate values in fields. So if you have something that is like a title, or maybe it's going to be a path that'll be used as a component in a URL, or something else that is just, it should stand alone by itself and be unique, then you can check this field. You should note that it can be a little more complicated than it seems if you check this, because of how content is stored centrally and then deployed outwards. You can have various versions of content existing across your whole account at various times, and this can potentially lead to Axilent coming back and saying, no, you can't deploy this content right now because it's got a clashing value in a unique field. So do be a little careful about this. It can be very helpful in preserving the integrity of your data, but it can also make things a little more complicated for you in terms of being able to deploy and edit content. So I want to start off by just looking at some simple field types. And what I think of as simple field types are the first 4 of these here. They're all pretty straightforward. The most basic one is string, and that is simply a one-line character field. And if we go back to the inbox here and pop open one of these content items, you'll see this is a string here. So path, title, that kind of thing. Those are strings. It just takes an arbitrary value, and it's not going to particularly check it for any format. So it's really the type of field that, if in doubt, that's what you want to be looking at. The second one is text. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to string, but the expectation for text is that it's a large body of text, so multiple lines, potentially multiple paragraphs. And if we go back here and look at article again, we'll see that the main body right here, the contents, this is a text field. And the nice thing about it, if you select a text field, you'll get a nice rich text editing panel inside the actual editor, where you can do HTML formatting and so forth. So that's text. So if you're looking at a piece of content where there's kind of a main body, this is the field type you want to be using. The other 2 options are numerical, and if you have a value that you either want to have as an integer number or as a floating point value number, so this would be like a number of units, whereas float might be a price. You can choose one of these 2. Largely they work just like strings, but in the editor there will be a certain degree of data validation. If you type in something that cannot be represented as an integer or as a floating value respectively, it will give you an error when you try and enter it. So it's just maybe a little more data validation on what's underneath the hood, really kind of a string type. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple more advanced features. Now, what if you want to do a field where there are a limited set of options that the editor can choose from? And I'll give you an example right here. This is one of our articles, and you'll see here it's got a category field, and under category it's got a list of 3 possibilities: default, tutorials, and recipes. And there's really nothing I can do to enter a value in here that's not one of these 3 options. This is an option field, and so if we look inside, we're going to make an option field for our comment field type. So let's call it an option, and let's maybe call it category again. That's good. Not worry about too much about, well, it'd be category actually, so it'd probably be a pretty high salience. It would be grouping things by that, so maybe 80. And let's add it to quick edit. And we definitely do not want it unique for an option field, because you know, then only one content type could select any given option, or only one content item could select a given option. So save that. So now it's going to ask us for options. So at this point, we enter in what we think are the legal values for this. So maybe comment could be a question. Maybe a comment could be a concern. Maybe a feature request. And maybe a bug report. All right. So let's look at our comment here. So we have this category, and now we see that we've got this list of 4 valid options. So in the editor, that'll be represented as a pull-down value in which you can only choose one of the legal values. Furthermore, if you are posting content in through the API and you try and put in a value that doesn't match one of these options, it will actually reject it and get an error sent back. Now, what if you want to make a field that can accept more than one value? So for example, let's say we make a new field and we want it to be labels, and labels could be more than one thing. It's somewhat analogous to a tag, but as part of the the actual field structure of the content. So let's call it labels, maybe plural. And again, this would be like kind of a grouping thing for this content. So give it 60, maybe not quite as salient as category, but up there still. And we'll throw it into quick edit as well. And the way we do this is we make it a list. And a list allows you to add more than one value to this field when you're editing the content type. So save that. So at this point, actually, let's just add one more simple string type. Call this the title. Throw that into quick edit as well. And I'm going to make one adjustment here. If we go to settings, we have to choose a title field. And I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to throw in a single workflow step. Don't worry too much about this. We will look at this in more detail when we do the workflow thing, which is step 2 of this particular para screencast. What I've done by setting a title and adding a workflow step is This is now the minimum necessary to make this content type viable. You can actually use it now. And I wanted to do that, so if we go into the inbox and I add a new piece of content here, it will show up and I can see a comment, and we can create it, and we'll see, here's the editor. So it's a title, hello world, and that is a question, and then here's the labels, and right now we have no items, and I can edit this list, and I can add hello, can add query, and go back to the quick edit field, and you'll see that we've got hello and query as two different distinct values here under labels. And then finally, if I, maybe add one more thing in here, hello world, save it. Here we go. So that's a list, and if you are dealing with a situation where you want to add more than one value to a single field, a list is a good way to do it. Now the third case here is a combination of the options, where we're constraining legal values to a particular set, and the list, where we have more than one value for a field. And so the way we do that is with the logical union of those two ideas, which is the option list. Should we put in here subjects? This will be what the comment is talking about. And so maybe again a little salience in here. People are talking about the same subject, it's relevant. Add it to quick edit. Okay, so here's subjects. It's an option list. And maybe talking about the different parts of Axilent, the API, the content type UI, inbox, library, and content channels. All right, pretty good. So let's go back to our inbox here. And this comment we just created right here, so now it has subjects. And here they are. You see that the options that we put in are presented as part of this multi-select widget here. And so when I can say this question that I've got concerns the API, and maybe it concerns content channels. So select those two things, save it. And now we have associated, like the list, two different values, which you can see by scrolling, two different values with this one field. And the only difference between this and a regular list is that the things you can put in here are not arbitrary. You have to choose from a select of pre-established options. I'll just do a little bit more quick looking here around the content types. So that's pretty much lists for the beginning, and you can always go back and edit them by just clicking on any one of the fields you made. Here in the settings, we have the original 3 options that we had when we created it. So if you want to later on change your mind and say, well, now I want to allow content posting, you can do that right here. The title field is right here. The title field controls what is shown when the content is listed. So this value right here, hello world, Axilent knows how to display this value because of the content type's title field. So if that was pointed at something else. So for example, let's say I wanted this to be the category, for example. I save that, go back to the inbox, and what you'll see here, same thing. It's the same content type as before. But we've taken the category field, we've made that the title, which is probably not a great idea. Probably we want that title to be the title field. So we'll move that back. You can delete the content type right here. Be very careful about this. If you delete the content type, you're going to get rid of the content of that type, which can be catastrophic. So this is kind of a high danger area right here. And finally, there is edit workflow. We're going to do this in part 2, but right here is where you can go through and configure the workflow for this content type. Okay, that is it for part 1 of content types. In part 2, we will cover the workflow for content types. Thanks for listening.